Over the last couple of episodes, I've built a skeleton XP farm, reworked one of my old builds into an enchanting tower, and then used that XP to get a full set of enchanted gear. And those are some pretty big leaps forward. Today on the Bedrock Guide, we continue that trend because it's Redstone Day. Maybe it's been a little while and you need a little bit of a refresher. Or maybe you're completely new to Redstone and have no idea what to do. Or maybe you're just sitting there scratching your head saying, what's this guy talking about? Regardless of where you're at with Redstone, let's go over it real quick just to make sure we all start on the same page. You can do some pretty cool stuff with Redstone, but first, you need to know where to get it. Redstone can be found in the form of redstone ore in the highest saturations below -32 in your world, increasing in saturation the lower you go. So if you've got a diamond branch mine, just start there. You're bound to find a ton of it. Redstone can be placed in a variety of ways, and the most simple is a straight line. Redstone can also be connected one block taller and one block lower, and it can even do some crazy stuff like this with transparent blocks like glass. If you tried that same thing with solid blocks, it's not going to connect up all the way. Kind of a cool little trick. A lot of these little tricks we'll get into when we start building projects like we're going to do later today, but redstone is useless without a power source. There are many power sources in Minecraft. This one is a lever. When you flip the lever, it powers the redstone, and as you can see, the further down the line we go, the weaker the signal gets. Redstone by itself can be powered up to 15 blocks away before it shuts off on the 16th block, and beyond this, it's not going to do anything. So that light down there is not getting powered. However, redstone can be crafted into some pretty cool tools, one of which is the redstone repeater. If I break this block right here, and I place this repeater right after the last powered redstone in the line, it will continue on for another 15 blocks, which just happens to reach this redstone lamp. And as you can see way down there, if I flip this lever, that redstone lamp turns back off when this redstone line is depowered. And honestly, that's pretty much all you need to know. So just to recap really quick, redstone can be placed on solid blocks, transparent blocks, needs a power source to work, and a signal can travel up to 15 blocks away to power various items in the game. Honestly, that is the simplest breakdown you could get. So we're going to take some of these basic principles and expand on them to build a really cool redstone contraption. On a recent live stream, I spent the entire time gathering resources for this build, and I spent some time prepping a space. As you might know, the skeleton farm is well below the tower. I did also make a few adjustments to the up and down system. We still have a drop, but at the very bottom, thanks to Randy in my community for telling me about this little trick, you can place 3 blocks of water above where you're gonna land, and it'll actually slow you down enough to not take damage. That's pretty cool. And then on the flip side, we're not using ladders anymore. We're traveling in style with a bubble elevator all the way to the top. I'm pretty happy with this update to the skeleton farm entrance, but we can do a little bit better. I am going to take a combination of chiseled bookshelves and regular bookshelves to build a secret hidden bookshelf door, because after all, this is a dungeon and I don't want just anybody getting in here. And what's better than a regular dungeon? A secret dungeon. I need to make room for all of the redstone circuitry because we want it to be hidden. The only problem is I've got very limited space to work with. I think that should be enough space to build the redstone contraption, but we'll kind of adapt as we go. The first thing that I want to do though is place a couple of chiseled bookshelves right here, and this is going to be the door itself. And as you can see, it's not actually gonna be a room. This is just gonna open up so we can get to the drop chute and elevator to get in and out of the skeleton farm. But I want this room to actually mostly be functional for additional bookshelf storage. So I think I can accomplish both goals with that. Then I'm gonna come over here and place another chiseled bookshelf right there. And that is going to be the input to make the system work. Chiseled bookshelves were introduced in the Trails and Tales update. And not only are they great for putting books on, they also can serve as a power source for your redstone contraptions. This is a redstone comparator, and this can be crafted using stone, redstone torches, and quartz. You can get quartz by going to the nether and finding quartz ore. We're not going to go too deep into this today because we're going to the nether very soon, but for today's purposes, just know you need some quartz to get comparators, and you need comparators for this contraption. So if you haven't been to the nether yet, you best get going. If you place a comparator out of the back of any container, such purchase a chiseled bookshelf, it's going to read a redstone signal from that container. Chiseled bookshelves are interesting because they respond based on what slot you've interacted with most recently, and once you've interacted with it, it will always be emitting that signal. So to demonstrate, I'm gonna place a fresh chiseled bookshelf down, and there is no redstone signal coming out of the back. And the moment that I put a book in the bookshelf, it will start emitting a redstone signal, and you can see slot 1 gives us a signal strength of 1. If I go on over to slot 2, it will give us a signal strength of 2. You can probably guess the sequence going here. If we put it in the 6th slot, it will take us all the way out to the 6th piece of redstone dust, and it will go no farther. So chiseled bookshelves are unique in that they actually only emit a signal strength of 6 at the most. And because each of these slots on the bookshelf has a very specific redstone strength, it can allow us to do some very cool things, like specifying which bookshelf slot is gonna open that door. So now that you have a basic understanding of redstone and how that redstone interacts with chiseled bookshelves, let's actually build this contraption, and I'll give you a step-by-step tutorial, and after that tutorial, we'll explain how the whole thing works together. And before we get started, because I know you're gonna ask, this is the general material list that you're gonna need for this build. They are not exact numbers, but I always craft more than I need, just in case we have to shift gears mid-build. So no, you're not gonna need 4 stacks of redstone, but I've got it here just in case. So if you're gonna follow along, this is generally what you're gonna need. I'll also try to put the material list in the description of the video as well, so you'll be able to check that out too. I typically use a different block for what I'm gonna place my redstone on, just so I can differentiate it from all this other mess in here. So for this build, I'm going to use dark oak, and I'm going to build out 6 this direction. And on the 7th block, I'm going to place 1 piece of glass, and then go down 1 at a diagonal, and then down 1 more at a diagonal underneath this piece of glass, and then build this back out so that it meets up directly underneath this block where we started. Then to the right and down on a diagonal from the bookshelf, I'm going to place a temporary block right there with a hopper directly under the bookshelf facing into that block, and then I can break the temporary block and then place a block directly underneath the hopper. This will all be the first part of the redstone circuit, but there's a little bit more to it than just that. I want this bookshelf to open this door anytime I remove the book from slot number 3. Well, as you can see, I put it in there and it disappeared. It's gone into that hopper. But for now, I have given this chiseled bookshelf a signal strength of 3. So I've got my comparator in place, and then I'm going to place 1, 2, 3, and 4 pieces of redstone dust, and as you can see, 1, 2, 3 are lit and the 4th one is not. That is perfect. We want it exactly like that. And then right after the redstone dust that is powered off, I will put a redstone repeater followed by redstone dust, and redstone dust. The great thing about glass, I already mentioned it on this video, is that you can go at a diagonal. This does not work with solid blocks, so these 3 blocks right here need to be glass. Well, and technically, this last one here actually doesn't need to be glass, but we just need these top 2 to be glass so that the redstone signal can go diagonally down and onto the next part of the circuit. I'm going to put 1 more redstone dust, and then we're going to put another repeater right here. And you might notice that you can actually change the position of this little piece on the repeater. Don't worry about that for now. All of these are going to be set to default, so just place the repeater down and leave it in the default slot. On these next 3 blocks, I'm actually going to build this out 1 more, and we're going to place redstone dust right here, right here, right here, and right here, and then a redstone comparator right here, and facing the opposite direction back toward the back of the circuit, another redstone comparator right here. Again, don't really worry about what this does right now. I will explain it when we go through the entire walkthrough of the circuitry, but as we go, just make sure you're placing everything in the right spot in the right direction. And last but not least, I'm going to place a piece of redstone dust right here that will go into this block. Some redstone pieces, like we've already demonstrated with hoppers, are directional. Droppers are the same way. You can place a dropper so that it's facing sideways, or you can jump and make the dropper face upwards, or you can look at the ceiling somewhere and make the dropper face downwards. This can be useful in a few different ways. For example, the next part of this build, we're going to make sure that this dropper is connected to that hopper, but we want it to be facing up. And then directly above this dropper, we're going to take another hopper and face it directly into the bookshelf. Last but not least, to make this whole thing work, I need 2 redstone torches, one right here, and then this redstone right here is in line with the third piece of redstone right here. We're gonna put the redstone torch right there. And as you can see, this is lit up and that is lit up. And now this redstone torch has actually gone off. That is a good thing. And we're about ready to explain why and how this works. Another really cool thing about chiseled bookshelves is if you take a hopper and you drop books into it, it will automatically refill the bookshelf. Now before, these books were actually dropping into that hopper below. So why is it now that they're actually staying in the bookshelf? Well, that's a great question and we'll explain it here in just a second. I've got one more thing I need to do to set this up before we're finished. I'm gonna place one book in the hopper below the bookshelf and one more book inside this dropper. Doesn't matter which slot you put it in, just put it in there and it's ready to go. If I were to remove this first book from the bookshelf, nothing happens. The only thing that happens is the signal strength changes to 1. Same thing if I remove the second book, it goes to a signal strength of 2. Here's where it gets a little bit interesting. You'll notice that this redstone torch is on and all of this is powered on, but all of this is powered off because the signal strength is not strong enough to reach that repeater back there. So I'm gonna leave this third one alone for a minute and we'll demonstrate here in a second. But if I go ahead and remove the book from the fourth slot, you'll notice all of that redstone just came on and this redstone torch is now powered off. The same thing is gonna be the case if we remove the fifth book and the sixth book. It powers that back half of the redstone circuit. So here's what's going on. This redstone right here needs to be powered on to power this block and lock the hopper up there and keep this redstone torch turned off. As long as this is the case, nothing happens. So if slots 1 or 2 are powered, this redstone torch takes care of that job. If we get to slot 3 or farther, that redstone torch goes off and that can no longer power this redstone circuit to lock this block, which is why we need this in place. So at a redstone signal strength of 4, this now takes care of powering that whole circuit. All of that to say, slots 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 do absolutely nothing, except for power that block. This is where the magic happens. If I remove the book from the third slot, the signal strength is not strong enough to get back to that repeater to power this circuit, and this redstone torch will be turned off, so no power will be going to this little comparator circuit right here. These two comparators are called a pulse extender and will keep the circuit on for a short time and over time become weaker and weaker until this shuts off, which then this block will lose power, this redstone torch will come back on, and a couple of things will happen. Because that block under there is no longer powered, the hopper is no longer locked, which will pull one book out of the bookshelf, which will be the first available book in the bookshelf in slot 1. At the same time, this redstone torch will power on and give a signal to this dropper to push the book that's already in there up into this hopper, and that hopper will push the book back into slot 1, leaving slot 3 empty, but everything else back as it was. Now, because this bookshelf pushed a book from slot 1 down into the hopper, that is technically the last slot that was interacted with, and so this redstone circuit will reset to a signal strength of 1, which will power this torch on and relock everything underneath here. The only thing that will have changed is that there's no longer a book in slot 3. This took a few minutes to explain, but it actually happens very quickly. So, are you ready? Let's do a little bit of a demonstration here. I'm gonna remove this book and we're gonna see what happens. Ready? Here we go. And there it went. You saw the book drop down into the hopper and get refilled. And as I mentioned, the signal strength is reset to 1. Now, this door is not a door. This is just a fancy book cycler at this point. They got pushed up into that hopper. And just so you can see it one more time, I'll go ahead and put this book back, and the book in slot 1 will go down and get replaced, and the whole bookshelf is full again. So now that I've got the input working, we need the door to actually open and close. In order to get this bookshelf door to open and close, we're going to build a very simple circuit. And when I say simple, it only requires 2 droppers, one facing up like this, one facing forward, right on top of the first dropper, and then a hopper right here. And just so you can see it from the side, it is pointing into the dropper. And then on top of this dropper, I'm going to place a piece of redstone by crouching and then dropping that redstone right down. If you don't crouch, you'll actually open up the dropper interface. That's the same thing for any container, like a hopper or a chest. And then I'm going to place one random item into one of the 2 droppers. snipers. I don't have a lot of use for arrows because I have an infinity bow, so I'll drop an arrow in there. And then I'm going to place a comparator facing out of the side of this dropper right here, and you can see that it has lit up. It is detecting that there is an item inside of this dropper, and so it is providing a redstone signal. And if I were to remove this book here and trigger the mechanism to go off, you will see that this comparator is now not powered because there is nothing in this dropper. The cycling of this redstone has actually dropped the arrow into this hopper, and this is what's going to tell the door whether to be opened or closed. And now basically all I have to do is hook up this redstone circuit to these bookshelves, and we are in business. So underneath this bottom bookshelf, I'm gonna leave a 1 block gap of air and place a sticky piston right here facing upward. And then I'm gonna do the same thing above this top bookshelf, leave a gap of air and a sticky piston facing downward. To connect the bottom piston to the redstone circuit, I'm actually going to take a repeater and place it right here in front of this redstone comparator. This is only actually outputting a signal strength of 1, and we need it to reach all the way to the piston there and the piston there, so a repeater will definitely get us on our way. That's probably going to be a little bit more than 15 blocks away, so we might need to do a little bit of magic with repeaters to make sure these both go off at the same time. But I can run a redstone line from that repeater into another repeater facing directly into that piston, and you can see that it has extended. And because that is a sticky piston, anytime this retracts, it's going to pull this bookshelf down with it. I don't believe this will work on Java Edition because you can't actually move containers with sticky pistons like this, but hey, that's one of the advantages of playing Bedrock, right? So just to demonstrate, when I pull the book out of the bookshelf, it's going to cycle through the redstone signal and pull that bookshelf down. And now all I gotta do is connect redstone up to this piston, and we are fully functional with our hidden bookshelf door. And maybe it's not so hidden, but we can take care of that pretty quick too. Okay, we're all hooked up, and I didn't end up needing this repeater down here to offset for any timings with this one because it actually did not require 15 blocks. It reaches there just fine. So to demonstrate, if we remove the book from the third slot, we're gonna get an open door, and if we put it right back in, it's gonna close the door again. Oh yes, so good. Now, if I take any of these other books out, no open sesame. It's not gonna work. Here's where this gets fun. Now I can take a bunch of chiseled bookshelves and blend this right on in there, and no one's ever gonna know it's even there. Oh, this is so good. Take the book out. We've got our entrance to the skeleton farm. I can drop down and go take care of repairing my tools and stuff, and then hop right back up, and we can close it on up. Oh, I'm so excited. I love hidden doors like this. I wish I could have put in a bigger one, but there just is not enough space. Any block that we break back here is literally the outside of the tower. So unfortunately, space constraints kept it to a 1x2 door. But don't you worry, we'll build some bigger, better things in the future as well. But I think this is a good introduction to redstone. And I've got a little bit more work to do in decorating this room, because it wouldn't be a true hidden bookshelf door if we didn't actually hide all of this redstone back here. So, with the magic of editing, we've got a fully finished and hidden bookshelf door in this room. In fact, if you weren't paying attention to the video, you'd have no idea there was anything in here except for books and some flowers that I just broke. But all in all, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope you guys were able to follow along, and if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section, or better yet, be sure to join my Discord community because I do have sections specifically for this kind of thing on there, and I'd love to answer your questions or hear even some more ideas that you might have for some contraptions like this in the future. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for more content just like this. And hey, don't go anywhere. There's more Bedrock Guide content on the way.